Okay, and we are here live and in person with Lolly Laloo, James Dondo, Helena Handbasket, and eventually an assortment of various tens and millions of thousands that will grab onto this video and have their lives transformed. Okay, so we're going to hear, and is that the way to pronounce your first name is Lally? Well,
You can call me Lydia.
Lydia.
I'm trying to transition my name away from the cartoonish name into just being unspeakable. I'm in the middle period between my two names.
You're trying to say Middle Earth. I can sense it.
I'm trying to move away from the lallie laloo because one, few people can pronounce it, and two, some people think I'm Lulu63, and I don't know. It's just one of those.
Okay, so how about if I do redo the intro and say, we're here with Lydia, who goes by the name Uunspeakable. Would that be?
There you go.
Okay. All right, welcome. We are here, Things That Matter, and we're here with Lydia, who goes by the name Uunspeakable, and we are going to talk a little bit about her transformation process in terms of moving from one belief structure, or the lack of a belief structure, to a fully formed belief structure. So we're here with James Dondo, and Helena Handbasket is also here. So welcome, everybody. So tell me, Lydia, what did you originally believe?
That's a hard one. I believed a lot of things and nothing. I was always fascinated with magic as a little kid. Magic and mythology, but it didn't mean anything more than something that I enjoyed playing with. I grew up fantasizing, as I think most kids do, about elves and fairies and various things. I guess I'm having a hard time articulating it now because I'm on the spot.
Can you help me help us all to get a framework for what it was that you fed on? In other words, you didn't conjure up leprechauns and fairies out of
no, not at all. I grew up in an academic, steeped in academia. With my family, my dad is a professor of philosophy, and the whole family is very intellectually active. As a little kid, the books I enjoyed were fairy books, and mythology books, and they were pretty much the same thing to me. I would spend equal time as Athena and a flower fairy in my play. All the different cultures. I had two mythology books that come to my mind. One was an illustrated Greek myth with wonderful line drawings, which I read until it fell apart, and then I had an Egyptian one as well, which had cartoons and diagrams of. I don't know. It was just a fascinating book. Unfortunately, it was a paperback, and it also fell victim to overreading.
What, from your perspective, led you to land on that, if you have an idea about that? In other words, as opposed to some other belief matrix, what do you think attracted you to that sort of a...
Well, I didn't have a belief matrix. I liked the stories. And there was definitely a piece of me that did not feel like I fit in the world, fit in the society that was presented to me. And I wanted very much to find that I did not actually belong in it, and that I actually was different. But I also did not believe in any gods. I did not really believe in any magic. One turning point I remember, which pushed me toward Celtic paganism in a way, when I was around 8 or 9, my parents started to have a solstice party, complete with bonfire and pretending to sacrifice hot dogs and things like that, because in an ironic philosophy department party, basically. So it was, yeah. But me being me, I made an elf costume with my best friend and pretended to, I don't know, I literally made an altar with flowers on it and was like, let's play this for a while. But I didn't really believe it, you know. I mean, I didn't start seeing things. I just wanted to. I wanted to find magic. And
no one was placing an expectation on you to believe anything. I'm taking it, or am I mischaracterizing?
No, they wanted me. They would have been horrified if I believed in God. They would have been horrified. They were and are hard atheist. All the exploration in the world is wonderful as long as you keep it at an arm's length and don't let it infect your brain. Because that's my family.
So then non-theism was a pretty socially important context to your upbringing. There was sort of an expectation that you would not adopt a particular cultural mean.
They wouldn't have known what to do if I did. There's only one member of my family who has a theistic belief system, and they do not know what to make of her. She converted in her late 40s to Eastern Orthodox Christianity, actually, and it baffles them. They borderline make fun of her, and I know that if I had done that, they would have done the same.
So you would say then your non-theistic approach to reality was pretty socially important. In other words, the people that you looked to for guidance and connected would have that sort of an expectation. So if you adopted anything later on, and I'm expecting we're going to get to that, was there a process of considering the social cost of actually adopting something that might be foreign from your parental lineage's perspective? In other words, were you reticent to adopt anything that was sort of different than what your parents had as an expectation for what was right?
I am very reticent to go into it at all, because while where I have ended up is not a theistic belief system, it is enough separate from what they grew up, what they would expect of me, or what they can comprehend, I guess. It is foreign enough that I don't even bother. But I'm enough of a fuck up that they knew I was doing things like going to the goddess temple in my 20s and stuff. So I mean, whatever. They just write it off as that. That's what she's like that. What would you expect?
So what did you change your beliefs from to, if you can give us a framework to understand that?
It wasn't so much a changing it from to. It was, oh my goodness, loud truck. I've been, okay, how do I chronologize this? I went to college with a minor in mythology. I had to drop out for various reasons. I continued to be I thought I was going to concentrate on Celtic mythology. And all through this, I did not believe a thing about it. I was interested in it from a cultural phenomenon. But I had this feeling that there were threads running through it that I could tie together. If not in a belief system, then just in an academic sense. I'm sorry about the loud truck. There is construction in my neighborhood. In my late 20s, I sort of stopped myself, I broke away from the life I was living, which was not at all productive, and went on sort of a fix myself journey before I was going to turn 30, which was something that I never thought would happen. I never thought that I was going to make it to 30 in the first place. So by the time when I realized I was going to, um, I was like, okay, time to shit or get off the pot. So I went to California. I discovered this thing called the Goddess Temple, which is very woo, very witchy. It was fun as hell though, and it kind of, I didn't believe it, but I tried really, really hard, and it was fun. Um, and then I ended up coming to Tennessee and exploring all sorts of the Native American stuff. I had also gotten into yoga in the meantime.
Would you be willing to start from I came to Tennessee again, because that beat was like really.
Oh, yes, there is so much construction. Okay, while I was in California, I got heavily into yoga and associated explorations of what all this chakra stuff was, and I didn't know, I had peripheral familiarity with it, but I was like, maybe this is the way. So that combined with the Celtic, combined with the goddess stuff, I mean, I just kind of saw it all as different people's perspectives on the thing, and I still do. I came to Tennessee and went to I don't care. I went to a treatment center for an eating disorder, which is in the country in Tennessee. And there they introduced me to a lot of Native American traditions and a lot of Central American traditions. And during the practices of that, I had what I can only call as, it wasn't completely out of the blue, I had this crazy thing happen. And I had this crazy thing where my mind either broke or something. I've concluded that it's the same thing that the Buddhists call satori and the Hindus call moksha. Ego death. I don't know. There's no way I can describe it, but lots of people have it, and I suspect it's the same thing that I suspect it's the same thing that people speak about when they say that they have had revelation. But I didn't have a framework. All I know is I realized that it's going to sound so freaking woo, that we are all one, that it is all one, and I didn't have I don't know, that I can't describe it, I can't explain it.
Well, I would say that language in general is a little bit unable to carry some of the experiences that we go through. That it would be understandable that maybe you had an experience that was certainly foreign to your ability to slap words on it, much less convey and transfer that idea of the experience one to another person. So,
right.
I've noticed that you've looked for the different words from the different religions throughout the world to kind of try to explain what it is that you went through, but obviously it was quite the experience.
Right, and I mean, from that point, what that did was completely break me of the illusion that I could figure it out, that I could get there by my explorations, that I could get there by seeking. But that didn't stop me, because I was now chasing that dragon. And I went, I mean, I've had subsequent, less intense experiences that I can't explain. But God, so much loudness. I'm sorry. But nothing, nothing came. I've never been able to reproduce that in full. And I didn't do anything. I don't know. I was standing in a medicine wheel circle of students with a bunch of people of who had been studying the Toltec stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Carlos Castaneda, but
well, maybe you could explain, just for the sake of people listening, what that would
okay.
entail.
It's again hard to explain. It's a philosophical or belief system originating in Mexico, involving. It's basically another mind practice similar to Buddhism, but it has completely different mythology surrounding it. Is all very similar practices in ways, but it all comes down to the same thing of realizing that there's the first attention and the second attention. Second attention is basically analogous to Satori, in my opinion, seeing through the veil. So somehow one of these dudes put his hand on my back and pushed me through that veil. Just pushed me through it. I don't know how, I don't know what, it doesn't make any sense to me, but that happened. Yeah, that happened. And I couldn't hold, it didn't send me crazy, but it did bust my illusions. And since, for a good decade, I tried to figure out what that was, and I tried all the different routes I came across to identify it and to get back there and to be able to pin it down, or to at least access whatever the hell that was. For lots and lots of the Kundalini stuff, lots and lots of pacing around labyrinths and building. I don't know. I did a lot of stuff. I went down a lot of woo trails, and
so can you help? Can you help us understand how, as you were going through this exploration process, you were discovering things that were new to you and completely foreign to what you had as a framework growing up. Was there any kind of a context, a wrestling with how different what you were discovering was to what you were used to? In other words...
No, I was excited as hell. I wanted it bad. It wasn't... The paths I went down weren't new to me, but I had never put credence in them. I had never put anything more than fun in them. And no, there was no... I've always been a weirdo, and I have no choice in that matter. And I don't give a shit. I was psyched as hell. I was like, what is this? Yeah, I never found it. The fact is that, okay, I'm going to come up to present day. I was very familiar with the texts and the concepts on the surface of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism. I had read a lot, but I reread that stuff subsequent to this, whatever the hell it was, and discovered that they were all talking about what I had experienced, in my opinion. And the one that came, the one that came with fewest bells and whistles was Taoism. It kind of went straight to this, goes straight to the, yep, that's what it is. And if you don't, you either read it like that, or you read it as a riddle, and it's both. But it spoke when I subsequently read the Tao Te Ching after that experience. I was like, okay, that's where it's at. That's what they're talking about. So when I am asked to categorize myself, I say I'm a sort of Taoist. Because when I say I'm a sort of Buddhist, that comes with so much baggage, and I don't subscribe to the baggage, and I don't subscribe to the baggage of Hinduism. But all three of those things are talking about the same thing, I think.
It sounded to me like you had a belief structure that you had no words to hang around it. It
Exactly.
Looked like searching for the words.
It's less a belief than a slight alteration of perspective. Nothing is different. I could quote a Zen thing to you if you want. Before I had studied Zen, the mountains were mountains and the rivers were rivers. After I had studied for 5 years, the mountains were no longer mountains and the rivers were no longer rivers. After 30 years of study of Zen, this is a paraphrase, the mountains were again mountains and the rivers were again rivers.
So should we address this? Should we call it an experience that you had?
Yeah.
You're describing it as something different than belief, and so I don't want to get hung up on the word belief.
I would call it gnosis. I would go right straight there. I would call it Satori. Because there are no words in English that go there. I could go ego death or ego expansion. Either way, it's both. I am that I am. And so are you. How's that? Aham brahmasmi and tatvamasi. I don't know. The limits of language is my new favorite thing. Trying to figure out how the structure of our language enforces our cultural assumptions.
Well, you're sharing that struggle with a few good folks. I hope if you figure it out, please share everything that you know, because we could certainly use something to poke through the veil in some cases, I think. So can you help people understand how your life has changed since this happened?
Since the latest permutation of it, in which I am no longer seeking, because I sought fruitlessly for a long time after that experience, and I just went off the rails. But I came back. Where I have reached now is a perspective shift where I have the ability to step back. I can step back from what's going on. And that's important to me because I get really, really passionate about things, and I get really, really hurt by things. And I tend toward extremes. I definitely tend toward extremes. So having this background, it's kind of like that experience receded into a part of my mind, but is always hovering there. It's always, that awareness is always there, and it never has gone away fully. So I can stop myself from entering the game most of the time. Some of the time. I'm getting better at it. I can pull back from this human scale and see the larger pattern, because I guess my metaphysic is about pattern. It's not about. I found a couple words in Western philosophy that work with it. Neutral monism, and mereological nihilism are two things which I can identify that I agree with. They don't cover it. They don't cover the whole thing, but those are two words. Well, four words, actually. But
Well, language is like trying to carry the ocean in a bucket.
yeah.
It takes a while. If you could say, can you describe a little bit about, okay, so this has obviously changed your relationship with yourself, and how has it changed your relationship with the outside world, too? How has it affected your people, places, and things dynamic?
I cannot have real enmity toward anything or anyone. Loud truck again. One of the absolute, one of the tenets, if I can call it that, of what I feel, what I intuit about the way things work is that what we see as opposition and what we see as other than that relationship is absolutely necessary. The interplay between opposing forces is what makes this whole thing work. So even though I get angry at what's going on around me, part of me knows that if that stuff wasn't going on, nothing would be going on. I don't know. Mutual arising is mutual arising.
So it has changed your emotional reaction. Has that had a contingency effect on your behaviors too? Has it changed the way that you actually behave toward people, places, and things? And if so, how?
Yes. I don't care as much what people think about me, because I've realized that I as me don't really exist. Things matter a lot less, but a lot more. I mean, they don't matter. I've realized that that my foibles are very, very, very non-important. I mean, that they couldn't be any other way, or I don't know. I don't feel as guilty for being who I am.
John Cleese did an interview recently, and you know he's from the Monty Python era and all of that, and he said something along those lines. He said, "As I get older and wiser, I realize how little things matter."
Yeah, one of my favorite poems is called "When I Get Old, I Will Wear Purple," and as I approach old age, of moving past the 40 mark, realizing that is true.
Uh-oh, you're muted.
FedEx truck. Things are active in Nashville this morning. I have a feeling I'm babbling.
No,
Direct me.
you're not babbling at all. Okay, so how about if we focus in on, would you say you are better off or worse off due to this transition?
Way better off. Way better off.
Why is that?
Why is that? I have a finely honed witness to my own behaviors. And I'm not stuck in the middle of my storm anymore. Yeah.
Do you have any regrets? Well, let me
Far too many to mention here.
I realized how open that question was. It could open up a floodgate here. But let me try to get a little specific and say, like, is there anything about the old paradigm that you would bring forward into the new one that you do think is valuable? Like maybe there was a comfort in recognizing that it was just pretend, that now there's something different going on. And I'm guessing, I'm just speculating here, but is there anything about the old paradigm that you miss that you could bring forward, even if it were, even if there's an impossibility of bringing it forward because you can't squint your eyes and just believe it into existence? Is there anything that you miss? Is there anything you regret?
Well, no. There are things I have brought forward, which is the knowledge of the stories and the recognition that they all are stories, and to value them all equally. I do value them, all the stories, very much, but I have a serious caveat that I really want people to recognize that they're stories. That's even my, I mean, especially my stories. The more we question our assumptions, the better. I think, and if I try to do anything, I try to ask to get people to at least take a look at questioning their assumptions. And what I would bring forward I would bring a lot of things forward out of my childhood if I could, but not from my later life. That was hell.
Well, so what are you happiest to be rid of, if anything?
The illusion that I need to meet some standard. The illusion that there's something that I am falling short of. Yes.
That's a good one to be rid of, based on my grand scale experimentation of one person, this guy. But I would have to agree with you that that's a good place to be. If there's anything you could do to get people that once shared your old paradigm to know that you think is really of value, but that they can't see, and forget about the idea of figuring out a way to convince them, just assuming that you could share what it is from your current perspective into the people that shared your former perspective, what would that be? Why is it valuable?
I could go really crazy, say Tatabamasi, but I don't think that'd be good. Things aren't things.
Why is that valuable?
Why is it valuable? Because once you start thinking about, okay, how about this? We are mostly space. Yeah, I just think, take it down to a physics level. About how much space there is in an atom.
If you could condense a human being down to its actual mass, it would be the size of a sugar cube.
Exactly. I mean, what we are. Okay, let me see if I can. This is so inarticulate. I am so sorry. I'm having a hard time.
That's why editors were invented.
Yeah.
Don't worry about a thing.
Okay, how about this? I'm gonna borrow. At least in the West, we have this. We have two competing models. We have what is stuff made of, and that assumes a maker. A maker, the identity, there's an identity of a thing, and then what that thing is constructed out of. That's something that should be challenged.
So if you're saying, if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is that no one has ever drank water in their lifetime. Water is a sound or a word structure that is a substitute for an actual thing. It's just a referent at the point that you're speaking to something else. You're calling it by a name.
There's that part, and then there's also the part of, is a tree made of wood? Am I made of flesh? No. No, I would say no. Does lightning flash? Is there an actor behind that lightning? Am I thinking thoughts? Is there something behind those thoughts? I say no. I say no, no. It's all about motion. It's about motion. It's pattern of whatever the fuck it is. So, I don't know.
Well, it seems like from that perspective, you paid way too much for your couch.
Yeah, no doubt. Right?
Yeah. And so let me ask you this. Does that give you a perspective of saying these things that people worry about, oh my gosh, pork bellies are down a quarter, what are we going to do? And is sort of frivolous and perhaps a self-made prison that is based on vapor? Is that I'm asking, is that what you're driving at?
It's more than that. It's very dangerous. When it's foolish is what it is. Yes, it's foolish. Why was there a depression? Why was the Great Depression? Because there weren't enough of the symbol of wealth. It's like I'm going to quote somebody, paraphrase. It's like a guy went to work one day and his boss said, I'm sorry, we can't build, we don't have enough inches. He's like, well, we have the wood and we have the nails and we have the hammers. No, I'm sorry, there just aren't any inches anymore.
Use too many of them. Sorry, all out, fresh out of inches.
Exactly. And I'm glad Helen is here because what she had said in the discussion between you and Ozzy about this, about the social realities, sparked me thinking about that stuff. The map for the place, the menu for the food, and that is that's a question. I think that's one of the questions we need to ask, as well as the othering, so in-group, out-group, because I think that in-group, out-group is the same paradigm that as we use to identify between things. And while they're necessary, I wouldn't know where I stopped if there wasn't something that was not me. And we wouldn't know who we were if there wasn't someone who is not us. And while I dislike the tribalism more than almost anything, I think as long as we recognize the necessity of us and them, that's what I think it means to love your enemy. I think we have to be grateful for the other, or else we wouldn't know who we were.
I wonder if there's a point at which something that is constructive becomes destructive. If you don't have enough water, that's a problem, but if you have too much water, that's a problem too. And so if there is self and other to the degree that there's a heart and kidneys, then you have something that's great and grand, that you can actually begin to generate something more than the sum of their parts, so to speak. Some people call it emergent properties. But the point being that if you have such a division that other is not worthy of existence, I think that may be where it crosses the line. But that's my guess.
Well, yeah, we have this idea often that one side is supposed to win. One side is supposed to eliminate the other. And I think if that ever happened, everything would go away. Because there would be... You use one of those words again, non-duality, advaita. It's both, and this is so inarticulate.
It won't be when I'm done with it.
It's a dance. It's a dance. It's okay. Picture. Okay, here you go. I think in images. Tango. It's a freaking tango. It's a back and forth. There has to be a push-pull or a push-push in order for things to move across. And there's another loud truck. Gosh darn it. I need to leave this city badly. It's encroaching on my little space here.
It seems to be disturbing the peace right now for you.
It has been for quite a while. But my landlady's selling the house anyway, so I gotta find adoptive homes for about 2,000 plants, and then and then leave. Where was I? Where were you? Where was this?
You were talking about if I may be mischaracterizing it, but you were talking about the paradox of everything being one at the same time, the necessity of other in order for there to be a relationship at all.
Well, yeah. When I say all is one, I don't mean it like a big undifferentiated void. I mean it. It all goes together, is what I mean. That's what I mean. I mean it. Or not at all. It all goes together, or not at all. That may be the best way I can say it.
What do you think the world would look like if more people shared your perspective?
I have no idea. That might be if more. See, the thing is that Taoism is deeply libertarian in a way. There is no locus of control. I, on the other hand, am not politically libertarian. Of course, if you haven't noticed, but at least not modern libertarian. But I mean, Taoism is both deeply libertarian and deeply socialist at the same time, which, I mean, classical libertarianism is. But it is intuitive. The book itself was partially an advice book to emperors to step off and let people be and do what they do, because they will do what they do, and if you try to squish them in boxes, it just won't work. So what would the world look like if more people had my perspective?
Yes, so just for instance, let's say that people in government shared your perspective. What would government look like? Or would it be even there? I mean, there obviously...
They would definitely... I mean, I think it's fine if they're there. There would just be a reduction in the... Okay, the way I try to interact these days is, and if, in the, okay, let's see. Picture a ping pong game or a racquetball game in, you know, the one with in the room where it bounces all over the place. The ball goes boink, 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 boink. if aggression, if hatred is that ping pong ball, and someone or you hit it really hard at somebody, and instead of hitting it back to you, they step aside, or you become squishy, the ball will just drop to the floor. Eventually, it will run out of steam. It will run out of it won't have perpetual motion. It takes an active hitting back in order to perpetuate aggression, perpetuate that cycle of violence, of anything, of love, even of energy between. If you reduce the energy of that game, of that system, that would make things a lot more peaceful eventually, but it wouldn't. It's against pride, is what it is. The other tenet of which is very, very, very evident in the Taoist stuff is humility. Is being in the low position, going the watercourse way, stepping aside in order not to run into things, instead of feeling like you need to bowl through things. Acting spontaneously instead of trying to, I am going over there. Just being like, go with. It's kind of putting up a sail instead of trying to row across the current. And I haven't figured out how to do that yet in any effective way on a consistent basis. But I've had flashes of it. And I definitely, in some ways, I can feel it. In some other ways, I am a stubborn motherfucker and I flail badly. But
do you have any advice for somebody struggling with their existing belief structure?
Oh, relax. That's what it is. Struggling with your existing belief system. See, I've never had a concrete one that involved my eternal soul or anything like that. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to feel like if I gave up a belief system, it would be inherently evil or wrong or something. I don't know what that's like. So I guess questioning, but in compassion. I guess advice for someone struggling with belief systems would be read lots and lots of other traditions. Lots and lots, and see if you can see the common threads. See if you can see the common human struggle to explain what is not explainable. And realize that we tell stories to ourselves all the time, and it's okay. I think that the stories we tell and have told over the ages are just a beautiful illustration of human development and human exploration. And sometimes we come close to what we're trying to say, and sometimes we don't. Like, I just didn't come very close today. But, I mean, that's okay. We don't have to explain it. I would just say relax about it. I don't know.
Yeah, so would you say that doing your best to arrive at the location or at a decent perspective is more important than expecting yourself to have some sort of an outcome? In other words, to recognize you're on a journey, and that journey is a sort of a thing in motion as opposed to a destination. That you don't have to arrive necessarily.
Right. I mean, when we think about the concept of eternity and destination, destiny, I mean, there are things that I just don't understand how. In one way, I don't understand how people can be afraid of it anymore. Like death is that's the other thing that I've realized that's what immortality is. I have immortality. By my redefinition of self. I can say I will never die. And I suspect.
Do you mean that in the sense that everything that you are, always was, is, and always will be, it could not be otherwise? Is in that sense? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought I lost you.
Am I? Oh.
Are you?
Why am I having difficulties here?
I don't know. If you were talking, I couldn't hear it.
Please check my connectivity. I'm going to.
Yeah, re-enter. Go out and come back. No, we don't hear you.
Okay.
It's okay, Joe will edit all this out.
Yeah, she's come back in, hopefully.
So
yeah, I'm not going to invite others. I was just going to open it up for us all to like engage in a conversation. I think inviting others would get confusing because picking up on where we're at in this midstream of consciousness is practically impossible anyway. The only thing.
Yeah, I agree. I meant by open it up, when you guys are done with the interview part.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
There she is.
Is that better?
Yes.
Welcome
we can
back.
Hear you again.
Okay, cool. I have no idea. I'm standing right by my modem, and I'm like, why is that happening?
Are you on your phone?
No, I'm on my laptop.
Okay.
I have a little MacBook Air that I carry around with me. I can't. Since my wireless headphones seem to have been doing something strange, I am attached to my computer by the wire. So.
But not a wire.
But not a wire.
Yes.
That which we call a wire.
Don't you send me, mister? Don't you send me?
So,
there is no wire.
That doesn't work.
So is that what Shakespeare...
It doesn't work in regular conversation.
This is the sound of one hand clapping.
Blah, blah,
Is that what
blah.
Shakespeare was talking about, that a rose by any other name would smell just as sweet?
Yeah.
So I doubt it.
I do think that
No, definitely not.
yeah, we've sufficiently fleshed out all the questions that we've asked globally, everyone.
Thank God. I was.
You did great.
Yeah,
Lallie, you are too amazing, right? And so I like I said, have you been reading the side chat? Do you have access to the side chat?
I have access. I wasn't paying attention because I was shutting my eyes in agony as I tried to say things.
Well, okay, so get ready for more. I implore you, I nominate you to be the one to translate this into a language for us Westerners. We need a kick in the head, right?
We already have that. We have Alan Watts did a great job. That's why I was posted.
I have tried. Listen, I want you to feel sympathy for me and really hear me because I'm being sincere. You post the Alan Watts videos, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna understand, right? And I'll click on it, and it's so cheesy. The music and the sort of black and white images.
I know.
Right, and I can't get past like 3 sentences. And the last time you posted something by him, I went to Walgreens and got incense, and I started burning the incense. I turned off the lights. I got myself sort of zen ready, and I couldn't get past. I couldn't do it. I couldn't listen to it.
Well,
So,
Alan,
okay, I'm posting.
So you are the only person.
I posted a text version of one of them in the side chat there.
That
yeah, it's easier that way. It's totally easier that way.
You are in a special place here. Okay, I'm going to give you a categorical imperative. You have one foot in all of Western tradition, and you know it like the back of your hand, and you can throw words around. And you've got the other foot in Eastern traditions, and you know them like the back of your hand, and you can throw words around. You know, my Google is on fire after just hearing a couple of words from you. So you are going to be the one, and I'm claiming that you must be the one, that you are obligated to find those words, to find the words. If anyone can do it, it's you. To change the language so that you can give Westerners a swift kick in the head, rather than having to sit around and wait for us to explore and learn all the crap you already know. You know all of it. You know both sides.
I guess so, man, but it doesn't feel like I know shit.
Well, that's the point.
I don't know. Well, I'll think on it. I'll continue to think on it.
Yeah, so you're talking, and, as a total naive Westerner in every possible way, I get these tiny glimpses, like they're like body glimpses of understanding from the words that you say, right? And so like a little piece of my body will suddenly click, and I'll be like, oh, and then it disappears. So
that's normal.
I know it's normal.
And it's not like I live in this like law world at all.
Well, that's clear.
That's totally clear. Don't. That's the last thing that's true. I don't know. I could be crazy though. You never know.
It's not even relevant.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, if you're not crazy, in this world, you're crazy.
Crazy is defined by people who don't want to hear things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll totally continue trying. It hasn't been very successful, but I haven't also tried very hard.
Well, you haven't been
because the Tao that can be spoken is not the Tao, of course. But what happens is I see certain people or hear little things that people say, and I'm like, okay, they know, like what they have they're there. They're right there. They're gonna get there. I can tell. Like Xbox. and it's like it makes me so excited when I see that. But I don't know whether it's anybody's job to push people toward that. I don't think it is, actually. I don't.
No, we can give each other a drink. I don't think you can install it. It has to be something somebody recognizes their hunger for. And I think the difference between people that seek and those that don't is whether or not they recognize the hunger that is there.
There's that, and there's also the fact that the seeking is just going to take you in all sorts of wrong directions because you don't go anywhere.
Well, that's in the context of today's world where the answers are so diverse and there's so many carnival barkers claiming that their own linguistic paint job is the one and only.
But there's also the fact that the more... in one way, the seeking is inevitable, but in another way, it's completely non-productive, in fact, counterproductive. and the only way to get there is to get out of your own way.
Well, then the Jews wasted 40 years.
Hell yeah, they did.
That never happened, but that's another story.
Yeah, it is.
I was talking metaphorical, Jerry.
Come on, Joe. You know me better than that by now.
Yes, I did. I should have calibrated the language to be more precise.
Helena's laughing. She knows me well enough to know that I can't let that pass. I'm
course
Gandalf.
not.
I'm Gandalf on the gangplank. None shall pass.
Or what is your favorite color?
Blue, no green. Ah!
Precisely. I think even that tradition, Mr. James, if you read it without the bells and whistles, as I like to say, I'm going to be real controversial now. I think Jesus had Satori, if he existed. I waver between mythicism and thinking this little thing here, that Jesus had the same experience, and he told lots of people.
He does speak a lot from an Eastern point of view.
Yeah, he told lots of people, and they misheard him because they were stuck in this polytheistic, developed into monotheistic tradition, and he also would have seen it through his tradition. So yeah, but there are echoes of that in his message. So
people that I know that say, well, you know, I just take what Jesus said and I try to live my life like that, and I kind of forget the rest of it. I call those people Buddhist Christians, because when you read what Jesus allegedly wrote, it's like you might as well just take the teachings of the Buddha and say this is kind of the same thing with a Mid-Eastern flavor. But,
yeah.
So if I read the book as a myth and understanding the different cultures that were around before that predate the Hebrew expression in the 500 BC area, I understand the context of what they're trying to say. They're creating their own identity amongst a series of nations that didn't accept them. So they had to create this figure, and they just kind of borrowed bits and pieces from all different types of places, and they took the essence of the Egyptian religion through the Sumerian flavoring, and then they came up with this Yahweh character, who, you know, and it's like there is something there, but it's not what they say it is. So,
well, I mean, every culture is that. Every single culture is that, and that's what I used to find so fascinating. Like, and I love etymology also, the origins of words. Like, that's what got me into looking into Sanskrit.
right.
Because the goddess of speech is Vach, VAC, like vocal, and I used to just trip on that. Like, how fucking cool is that?
Mm.
And when I dropped out of school, I was in the process of the 50th page of what was supposed to be a 15-page paper on the cauldron and the maypole and phallic symbol and cauldron and like Yoni and Shiva and Shakti and what the fuck. I just couldn't stop finding these connections, and I had no idea how to tie it back into any sort of coherent whole, which is generally my conversational style.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I get that. You know, it's like, and like Helena was saying, in the West we have one narrative, and it's pretty much being challenged on every front, and they're fighting back, and they don't like being challenged. And
that's the thing, man. It's like, okay, yeah, that's true, and that's sad.
yeah, it is. And like Joe was saying, and I think you've said it, it's all about the language. And, you know, Helen and I agree. We'd love to hear you put words to some of these things. Because, oh, there goes Joe. It's just, there's so much more that needs to be expressed and explained in words we don't use and don't know. Because, I mean, yes, there's 500,000 English words, but there isn't enough to explain what we're trying to explain, which is why we create new words.
Yeah, there may be 500,000 words, but both of them suck.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, if you could characterize for me, if you don't mind, how would you characterize Western thought in a nutshell, and how does what you have compare to that, and why is it better?
Western thought is linear, monarchic, and static. It sees things as either mechanical on one side, that's the Newtonian atheist, hard, we figure everything out. It's like billiard balls bumping into each other. This makes that happen, that makes that happen. Or it's static as in made, as in created by, and then we extrapolate, we abdicate our participation to something else. We abdicate, yeah, that's the two, there's two sides to it, but they're both very static, seems to me. Where mine...
Do you mean like they're rigid?
Yeah, and things are what they are. It's essentialist.
Wow.
Whereas I see it as pattern of I don't know what the fuck. It's just I see it as music. I don't know. There's no teleology. There's no teleonomy either.
So nothing has purpose?
It's for the sake. It is for the sake of doing it. It's for the joy of doing it somewhere, or the interestingness of being.
See, that makes more sense. The Western thought, the Western religions, the monotheistic religions in general, big on this all has to have a purpose or a meaning. And
right, but then the
essence of life is lost seeking that meaning. Right?
She's criticizing essence itself.
Yes.
Yeah, that and I agree with there, but I also think that the reaction to that, in rejecting that, kept elements of it without knowing that they were doing so. They kept the idea that they took out the intelligence that was that they didn't want there anymore, which was this God in charge of everything. But that left. But they didn't realize that instead of now we just are left with this dead stuff, which does what it does.
Yeah, explaining the process was sufficient to describe the complexity of being.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I sent to you. That's what I was trying to communicate in what I sent to you this morning, James. Is that it does seem like it's insufficient just to describe the process and then count that as sufficient. That's necessary for understanding, but not sufficient.
Right.
Wait, I'd like to hear Lydia out. So they left the dead stuff instead of.
Instead of keeping the intelligence and attributing it to the process.
Intelligence in what aspect?
Not in a human aspect, but in a. I don't know.
Sort of like more like a deistic.
No.
Like there's no mind. It's just.
No, it's not a mind at all. Not a mind at all. It's purely a pattern.
Gotcha.
It's purely a dance. It's purely a piece of music, if you can see it that way. There's no point to the piece of music, but the piece of music is a hell of a lot more than the relation than each note running into the next.
That's true. Oh, I was just go ahead, keep going.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can. I don't know that there's. I don't know that I can at the moment. It's there. There is no. Okay, I am a materialist, but that doesn't mean that. I mean, okay. I'm gonna do a post eventually, or write something about the word material, the word materialist. I've been thinking about that word lately. And the dichotomy between material and spiritual. Because, okay, material is the most ephemeral thing that there is. It is the most changeable thing that there is. It is the most, whatever the hell material is. But it is the essence. And we can't pin it down. So is there anything more spiritual than material? The spiritual is hard and dead, hard, unchanging, as we define spiritual, whatever the hell that means. Seems to me that they're meaningless words, in a way. I'm really not making sense to myself at this point. I need to parse this out.
No, but you are making sense. To me, anyway, at least.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Well, what's interesting is so you're describing sort of a piece of music, right? But so that's a big forest view. But how did you get it? You got it by going even more micro than the trees, which to me is really interesting. So you go micro down to the place where there is no division, there are no parts, and so you see that seeing distinct things as things is just as fake as any other fakeness, but that and that micro reality that material is all bleeds into itself is what gives you. So sort of out of that grows this piece of music pattern, sort of gestalt, bigger picture.
As above, so below, as the Gnostics said. Absolutely correct.
That is what they said.
So you said at some point, hold on, let me see if I can scroll up and find it. I can't remember anymore the context, but you talked about how the way that you redefined the self was integral in some way. And so I would like to hear a little bit more about the way you redefine self.
I noticed that it was an illusion. I noticed that when I'll tell you my limerick, my favorite limerick. There was a young man who said, though I know that I know that I know, what I would like to see is the I who knows me when I know that I know that I know. And that means it doesn't mean anything, but well, one of the, in fact, probably the central points of all that Buddhist stuff, all the Buddhist koans, what is the questions that they continually set themselves to answer, which are unanswerable, is to get to the point where you realize that there's nothing behind, there's nothing back there, there's no me back there. I redefine the self as simultaneously non-existent and all-encompassing. When I say, I'm part of it at the same, it. I don't know. I don't know. But it's not this, not that. In a purely scientific way, it's just like exactly like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, we are star stuff. Everything that makes me up is the same stuff as everything else. It's the same. I'm on a material level, which I suspect, my intuition is that we like this word emergent, but our consciousness is emergent from that. But I don't find that deadening in the same way as I want to call them scientismists seem to. I find it intriguing and makes sense. Like I am a squiggle at the edge of the Big Bang, you know. But I'm still part of the Big Bang.
I don't see. I think I might just disagree a little bit that scientismists, however you said it, find it deadening.
That's good. I think I use the word to describe the people who because I have a fear of being heard as woo, basically, and I was preemptively defending myself, which was probably uncalled for.
I totally know where you're going with that.
Science does treat nature, in effect, as if it's unconscious. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And yet, then there is no bridge for consciousness. Where is it? In the strict, I think if I'm describing what it is that you're saying is the artificial divide between people that take a hard scientific view, if you afford me some latitude with language just to identify a group that views a specific way, even though it isn't articulated, even though they use a currency of meaning, there is no scientific process described by which consciousness arrives other than the description of cause and effect linkages that are more and more reduced inside of a brain context, but somehow by voodoo or whatever, consciousness emerges from that mixture, although we won't talk about that.
Yeah. I don't have an argument, and I don't intend to create one, because I don't really care if anybody agrees with me or not. But I will continue putting my perspective into hopefully less and less babblish words.
You're going to have to create your own words. That's what Helen is telling you to do.
I'm thinking, yeah.
But
Or
listen,
at least maybe not just explain, the Eastern using the Western language in a way better than anyone else has ever done.
Oh, no problem. Sure.
Get right on that, she says.
we'll have a hangout later this afternoon where you'll outline that in a. That's
Yeah, I'll
available to everyone. Thanks.
Yeah, it'll
pull out.
take you what, half an hour?
Couple hours. I'll have a treatise ready.
Couple hours. God, you're lazy.
I know it.
Well, she's got all her plants are starting to poke through the snow. She's got to go take care of them.
Yes, I do. Yes, they are. That's the only thing that keeps me even marginally sane is digging in dirt.
So I have found that whether or not there is a real self, right? I don't think there is. I think it's all fake and dissolves away, just sort of in the way that you were describing. Nonetheless, we need it to function. And I wonder if that's related to what you were saying about, there needing to be, you didn't say thesis, antithesis, but, the idea that the opposing forces are required.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the interesting part about all of this is that regardless, I mean, you're absolutely right. In order to function, we have to act as if.
Yeah, we have to act as if, and if you're a person who hasn't developed that as if, you really can't do very well.
Yeah, that I haven't done a very good job of constructing mine, honestly. Or I don't know whether done a good job is the right way, but I have a rather undeveloped self in some ways.
Right. I don't mean it quite that way.
No, I just it's, but in order to interact, one has absolutely to play along with the game because it is a game. Because we have no choice, but you also have no choice to be participating in the whatever frickin' pattern it is, because we also do that. So it's simultaneous, again, paradox of unitary singular me-ness and being part of the whole thing. And it's the only element that's missing from the singularity part is recognition of one's participation in the whole, I think.
Yeah, so if there's something missing in the, I guess, Western conception of self, it's too individualistic. It doesn't recognize that other part.
Yeah, there's no place for collective thought in Western society. It's all about me in the narcissistic sense. We don't see ourselves as part of a greater picture. We divide ourselves about it amongst any line that we can.
We see self in relation to other.
Yes.
But not self literally as other.
Yes.
Right?
Which literally we are, because we're all.
Yeah, that's what she's saying. If you really zoom in.
Yeah.
There's not even sense. Bodies.
Well, it's like we use the term I was going to ask about is like self-aware. We use that term to describe many things about ourselves, and yet that's something we talk about. We don't talk about group aware. We don't talk about, we seldom say, we don't speak in terms of humanity. We speak in terms of white people, black people, yellow people. We don't speak in terms of the species level. We don't talk about What's good for the whole bunch of us? We talk about this is good for me, this is good for my group, this is good for my country, but we never get bigger
James,
than
your
that.
critique might be too liberalistic, if you know what I mean. Like,
I do.
as if there is some common thing. There may not be.
Well, I've been, yeah.
Except that there's no, except in as much as we are literally all the same thing.
I started using 3 hashtags during this, my very first, I've been on any social media. This year, 2015 was my first year on social media, period. And I used 3 hashtags for my first several months, which were human family, earth family, and tribalism sucks. Those things that James was saying, yes. I think that I'm also a political animal in a lot of ways, so I translate this into, I don't know, all my peace activism and shit like that, which is where I fall off the rails from my perspective. That whole law and very Zen thing falls completely apart when it gets into that realm. But it does. My goals in that area are very connected to that paradigm that Joe was talking about.
So why do you struggle with an expression of passion in something that you care deeply about and on a completely different level than most people would?
Because then I fall into, I want this side to win. I want like, this is the good, that is the bad. The bad needs to go away. And that is at odds with what I see on the larger scale.
So is there no way of determining good or bad on a simplistic or natural level?
On a human level, they're very real.
I'm thinking beyond that. Like,
on a larger level,
I can't stand up for gay marriage because I believe that everybody has a right to be married if they want to be. I don't care who. So if I say, some people on one side say it's right, some people say it's wrong, or good and bad, or good and evil, whatever you want to term. Those distinctions are made. So if I pick one of those sides,
I pick sides all the time. I pick sides all the time, constantly. Yes.
So in that sense, I don't even want to bring the word moral into you. You're making a judgment or a value judgment at the least that there are things that are very important to you, but you seem to be able to not. You're trying to say. We need to stay removed from those things.
No. Just not invest my entire being into it, because I mean, okay, I tend when I get involved in it, and I am at the moment, to get really, really, really sad when it doesn't go the way I wished it would. And little backstory. I'm 10 years sober from alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
The relapse I had before that was I had been demonstrating against the U.S. going into Iraq for 2 years. I had been standing on a bridge with signs every night that winter before the March invasion in 2003, and I I recall when we went in, I said, fuck it, and went down a rabbit hole, went down, dove off the edge of my life, because I was so invested.
Right.
So I'm not good at moderation, so I just have to keep an eye on that is all.
Mm-hmm. See, that makes more sense to me. You know, when you put it into that context, it completely makes more sense.
I have to get some coffee. Hang on, I'll be back.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in Western thought we do have an artifact of linear thinking that has served us so well to build bridges and knock a few cans together and spit them into outer space, lower Earth orbit and whatnot. But ultimately, there are some limitations, and so if you rely on them in every case, you then sort of crowd out these other more profound things that don't have a singular solid answer.
Right.
Yeah, you end up thinking that linear thinking equals reality.
Well, yeah, on many levels that's true. We tend to be a very pragmatic species. We like things to function so that we can function. On many levels, very few people ever think about stuff beyond that because there's really no need. It's like if you know who Kim Kardashian is, but you don't know who Frank Tesla is, you're part of the problem. Right? Really, it's true.
I don't know about that.
Well, if you can tell me who's current popular in the pop culture right now, that it really means nothing in the ultimate furtherance of the species, but don't know who Frank Tesla is, or Thomas Edison, or any of these guys, the guys who have taken the time to do the work to give us what we have today, you're missing the point. That's how I see that. It's just there's more to it than what we see, but most people don't want to get any deeper than that. That's how I see it, and that's why conversations like this are so much more enticing to people who are looking for that deeper conversation.
Yeah, I'm really curious at how these kinds of perspectives relate to what the shape of the world would be were they to really take root. And I think that there are some
But we'll never know.
well, that's true. We could sort of have an indication, and then maybe, in other words, you have to establish some sort of a framework to point yourself at cultivating one thing.
Joe, the world will still be a spheroid.
Now that's flat.
Flat out mean.
I'm sorry, I had to throw that in.
Well, so this is interesting. So I kind of feel like I can understand her framework, and even like I can sort of inhabit it sometimes. But that I'm making some kind of a choice, right? So I can like choose to look through that lens, or choose to look through this lens, or choose to look through that lens. It seems though like she has integrated them all. And I'm wondering if she agrees, and so when she's lamenting sort of some of her sort of, I guess, falling into a too linear kind of mode or something, if at other times she feels like everything is all integrated exactly in the way that she wants, or if in fact really you're just switching back and forth.
I think this is where the mysticism comes to the front, where it's all is one, all is nothing, nothing is everything. All these kinds of concepts come to bear, and there she is. There we are. We tend to dismiss all of that stuff as crazy, but there is an essence there that we miss. But it's hard to live there and in the world that we live in here. So go ahead. How's the coffee? That's not coffee. We can't hear you. You're muted. There
yes,
you are.
I'm a recovering Luddite also. What red button? Anyway.
So we were just commenting on you when you weren't around. Did you hear us?
Okay. I didn't hear that. What?
Oh, you had earplugs. That's why she couldn't hear us.
I had one end, but it was. I don't know. Maybe I'm going deaf.
So I was asking if you find that sometimes or most of the time you are switching back and forth between these different ways of seeing, or have you really found a way to integrate them into one big way of seeing?
It varies. I kind of see it like a wave pattern.
Vacillates.
Yeah, it vacillates. It definitely vacillates. But there's always except when I'm in the absolute depths of a tantrum, basically. There's always a vague sense that I can pull out. But most of the time, it's kind of a middle grade where, I don't know, if you think of it in terms of like a radio wave, I'm mostly low frequency. Like I kind of waver between.
Like you're going at a 60 hertz rather than a 20K hertz.
Yeah, but then every once in a while I still go up, down. So.
But wouldn't that be just part of being a human? Like we all.
Yeah, definitely.
Of
course it is. Of course it is. Yeah, absolutely it is. That's the nature of the beast.
Well, while you were away getting coffee, characterizing this correctly, I think we were sort of talking about the difference between Western linear thought and the wider variety of Eastern, for lack of better terms, and being sloppy. But I know that, for instance, a bird uses one side of their brain to differentiate between pebbles and seeds, for instance, and then the other side of their brain to keep a wide area of situational awareness. And I think, globally speaking, Western culture has a tendency to be myopic, to be amblyopic with the wide view, and then perhaps the Eastern view would be maybe a little amblyopic, lazy-eyed with the focus area. And that
spotlight versus floodlight.
Yeah, whereas
okay,
you have seemed to have integrated both of those, and you said, there are things that are here, but that simultaneously they're here. Both are important.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that I have integrated them successfully, but I definitely am aware that they're both there and have access to both. So yes, yeah.
Helena, was I characterizing what you were driving at there properly?
Yeah, I think so. So for me, I feel like I switch back and forth, or switch, not just those two, but there are all kinds of different ways to view things, and that I switch among them depending on what serves me. So first of all, that's obviously not true. I don't have so much control as all that, but that's the way I want it to feel. But I'm wondering if sort of when you view moments in your life where you, I guess, regret or whatever, feel like things were slipping, do you think that is? Could you attribute that to being less integrated, and in the moments where things felt exactly right, could you attribute that to being closer to having it all integrated?
Maybe.
I'm just wondering if integration is a good goal.
Yes.
Or if there's no point to it, it's just fine to go ahead and switch all around depending on circumstance.
I don't know either. I'm still exploring this, and I am very, very far from. This did not give me like the la peace that one hears about. Let me make that very clear.
You don't float around in a garden of tranquil water and dust.
Not so much. Not so much.
But
no.
but you could, right? You could if you if you closed off, a lot of things and sort of isolated yourself physically and focused only on being in that state all the time. You probably could.
I doubt it.
Really?
Yeah. In moments I do. But I don't. But I can't call it up. Like what I can do is recall myself, I guess. But it's not. It's like. It's just like reminding. I think of all of this thing that I did as remembering, and I fall apart frequently. But so that goes back to that integration that you were talking about. I don't have an answer. I really don't.
Well, how about I ask you a different question? Sort of the same, but what do you see? How would you know in yourself that you've been able to resolve the remaining things that you see as hindering you? Does that help give you a better way of looking at it?
How would I know in myself if I?
Yeah. At what point? How would you become
my house
suddenly
would be
aware?
a lot cleaner. My house would be cleaner. I would get the things done that I need to get done. I would eat like a normal person. I don't know.
So you're going from the existential to the mundane.
Those would be signs that I had accomplished something.
Does that about sum it up, Helena?
Well, I don't know. A clean house doesn't signal anything to me. I've just decided that.
If the house is if one's surroundings are a microcosm or a metaphor for the inside of one's head, then the pile of clothes over there would probably not be a good sign for me.
Yeah, I don't put much stock in that.
Einstein said a clean desk is a sign of a sick mind. I think.
But I'm very, very healthy at this point. Very, very healthy.
Yeah.
I think, in fact, paying too much attention to the minutia of life can actually create a sort of frustration. In other words, if you have an expectation that everything should be neat all the time and all the cereal boxes should be ingredients out on your shelves and all that sort of stuff, I think that may be
There's a word for that,
compensation. OCD, yeah.
Well, there's moderation. I could use a little more OCD in my life.
We all have.
I'm a little bit overly wu-wei at this point when it comes to things like that.
The way I see it, it's like we have been bombarded with thoughts from the time we're little tiny kids about stuff and doing stuff and being stuff. To be successful, you have to be this, you have to do this, you have to have this. And ultimately, all of that does is it leads us to a social structure based on, like Helen said earlier, money is an illusion. It really is. And we're driven to attain this stuff when we miss the important things. We miss who we are, how we are, and how to relate to each other. So that's just how I think. So to me, none of this stuff really matters. It's just stuff. You know, if I lose all my stuff, I can always get more stuff. I don't put any stock in any of it. But some people spend their entire life building an empire of stuff and miss, relationships, talking with people, learning about each other, learning how to relate to each other. And they think nothing of it and don't think, and many people in society don't even think that there's anything wrong with that. They think that living a life totally on your own and totally isolated from everybody and having all this stuff is a good thing, and that worries me.
Yeah, there's something I find fascinating when reflecting on the people that we've talked about or talked to who have gone from a very Abrahamic religious perspective or thing to something that's more scientifically based, as we understand science today, that the description, if I'm characterizing it right, I'm doing my best here, that they put out was, I went from something that was very certain and very sure and yet incomplete to something that was wider and less certain but felt more fulfilling, if I'm characterizing again what I was hearing correctly. And what I heard you say is that you went from something that was very certain and yet scientifically based to something that was a little bit less certain and yet more fulfilling. Is that at least this is the impression that I got. So is that a fair way of characterizing your trek, in, if I can just be crude with a big swath of one to the other?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess so. I don't.
In other words,
I guess what I realized was that there actually was something there, but that there actually was something there that I didn't have to fake. But that I also didn't know what the fuck it was.
yeah, I'm just wondering the common thread. And I'm trying to stab at something that trying to grab the air here, perhaps. But I think maybe the common theme that I'm hearing is that we here all share we're ensconced in Western culture, and that has a tendency to be, as you characterized appropriately, linear, and there is one answer to the question. 1 + 1 always equals 2. There's no other answer, and yet it does seem like that's insufficient, because that's not what our real experience is. In nature, 1 + 1 could equal more than 2 or less than 2 or something completely different. When you put Na and Cl together, sodium and chloride, you get salt, which is completely different. So the point being that our experience doesn't confirm that certainty. And even though you were growing up in an environment where you were certain, there was nothing other than there was no such thing as God or woo or anything characterized that way. There was a certain answer to everything, and you gravitated to that. That same story, that same thread, that same theme, I think it was emphasized in the other stories that we heard from people who went from, let's say, an Abrahamic, very certain dogma-esque religion to something that was more exploratory in the form of, hey, we don't have all the answers in terms of science, and I'm okay with that. So I'm just recognizing a similarity between your story and the other ones that we heard, even though the superficial paint job was different. That's all.
Right. An acknowledgement that we don't know. I think that's an incredibly important step to take.
Yeah, and that's the common theme that I'm hearing. I'm wondering if that is sort of this struggle that we have over here in the West, that this certainty that we have is false, and we there are some people that maybe intuitively try to break out of it, no matter which model of certainty we happen to be in.
I think you're right there, Joe. Because we live in a materialistic, naturalistic point of view, per se, world in the West here, this is a keyboard. That's how we want to live. We want everything to be defined. We want everything to know what it is, so we can live our life based on the parameters of what's been put around us. So I think that's what I think.
Yeah, it just seemed like the theme. Do you have any closing thoughts, James, on the? I want to take this off air so that I don't have a
4-hour video. We're at an hour and 51 minutes, so it's not too bad. No, I think this has been excellent. this is definitely a different perspective than we've heard in the past few episodes. It's definitely, there's lots to think about and lots of different places to go when you get out of the paradigm that you're used to, that's for sure. It's brought back some of the things that I'd studied years ago and almost forgot about. They're in there somewhere. Just you don't talk about Eastern religions very much because we don't have a whole lot of it being expressed around here. So listening to some of this has been very good. There's just so much we really don't know, and I think what Lydia said there about the uncertainty of existence is there's a lot of reality there. There's a lot of truth there that we need to embrace.
Yeah, Helena, are you still here? Do you have?
She went to get.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. She's going to get some ice cream.
She had to get ice cream. It's an honorable mission. She's
Unquestionably, yes.
So let's just wait for her before we let Lydia wrap up, maybe. Why don't you go ahead, Joe? What do you think?
Well, that is what I think, is that there is something very that resonates very strongly with me, that when I hear somebody landing on something certain. Now, I think we can say, okay, gravity may or may not exist, but in reality, it's probably a good idea to treat it as if it exists, even if it doesn't, because otherwise your relationship with that cliff might not be very pleasant when gravity situation asserts itself.
Yeah, it functions well.
Yeah, so at any rate, I do think that there are things beyond the scope of our cognitive ability to capture. I also think that sometimes we'll craft a word that is as much blinding as it could be enabling, and it's sometimes hard to differentiate between those two. And I think Lydia, Uunspeakable, Lydia, brought up some really good points in relation to that, and I really appreciate the fact that you did share that with us today.
Helen, you're back yet?
I don't know.
No, that ice cream must be awful good.
I don't think I can muster any words of closing because I don't even know what I said. So I have no words of wisdom.
You said we're not real. We are real. We don't exist. We do exist. Self is non-existent and existent.
I can
close
with one of my bazillion mantras that I used to say all the time.
Sure. Go ahead.
Nah. They'd make just about as much sense as anything else. I don't know.
What would you say if you? What is your favorite mantra that you think?
I have a lot of them, but the one I said one this morning, which is one I say when I take a shower, I turn it on cold for a minute at the end, and that always I used to one of the torturous move journeys I went on involved a cold shower every morning before dawn to do your sadhana, whatever. And so I've kept a little bit of that, and that I turn it on cold at the end of the shower. And I always,
actually good for you.
Yeah, it closes your pores and stuff. But this was supposed to clean the night's negative energies off.
Nice.
I'm like,
fuck, that's cold.
It's basically because basically the whole point is you get in the shower and you go, oh my god. Oh my.
Yeah, exactly.
But I used to what is it? Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushti Vardhanam Urva Rukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshi Amamritat. And that means, it's a prayer to Shiva. Basically, it's saying, oh Shiva, you are the three-eyed one, you are a three-headed one, you're so great, or three-eyed, whatever. That's the first part, and then it says, this is good, this is why I say it. Like a cucumber cut from the vine, free me from the fear of death. So I just love that they mention cucumbers in the mantra. And it sounds so profound, and it kind of is, but it just means like release me from the bonds of that.
Yeah, Ozzy talked about the word religion actually means bonded.
Religio.
Ligaments to be
with a
Yeah.
So, Helena, do you want to share your final impressions here before we take it off air?
What? No, I never want to share any final impressions.
Exactly. I'm
What
like,
kind
what
of ice cream
pressure?
do you have?
That's ridiculous.
What kind of ice cream did you get?
I told you, flavor mindful.
Flavor mindful.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
well,
it's just really, it was very fascinating to talk with you. You should come on more hangouts.
I'm practicing. I isolated really, really well for a while and kind of forgot how to interact. So yeah, I'm. This last like little foray has. Oh, loud truck again.
Holy smokes. Loud and slow.
And it's a little road too. It's like all these big things going on that they're building. Like they built this big mansion, not mansion, big ass ugly house across the street, and they're just all over the place. So the city is going. My little old house here is just going, go away. So, I lost my train of thought entirely. That I don't have any closing words either.
okay, you don't really need them. For people that are watching, thanks for watching, listening, and subscribing. So we're going to take it off the air now. Bye-bye.